Okay, what is up, everyone? DSP here, and welcome to episode 41 of Ask the King. Today is February 6th, 2014, and we've got a ton of questions to get through. Now, the first thing I want to do is thank everyone for putting up with the little bit of a blip that we had this month. If you're not aware, this month we completely rebooted the website, thekingofhate.com, where you guys primarily go to submit your questions for Ask the King. Okay, and because we did this, when we rebooted it, when we put it to new forum software, unfortunately we lost all of the data from the previous site. And because that happened, there were some 50 questions that had been submitted on the previous site that unfortunately got deleted. So I want to sincerely apologize to anyone who maybe posted up their questions on the previous site, wasn't aware of the site reboot, and I didn't get to read your question this month, all right? But the good news is there is this positivity and this reinvigoration feeling around the new website, thekingofhate.com, because this month, in just a week's time, I got over 170 questions submitted on the forums. And that's awesome because usually I only get that most like 150. So I got a ton. Plus, of course, people submitted via Twitter, via Facebook, and we're going to, for the very first time, have live call-in callers on Skype at the end of the show. But before we even get close to that, we got so many questions to get through, wide variety of topics. As usual, I want to thank everyone for doing such a good job with the variety of topics. And we're going to jump right in. But before we do, the one thing that I want to say, because this is a new year, this is a new website now that you're using, thekingofhate.com, even though you're going to the same web address, you've seen the forums look way different. I want to give you guys some criteria and guidelines for submitting questions and having a higher chance that I'll actually answer your question here on the show. All right? Number one, you've got to be concise, okay? I saw a lot of people this month who maybe were, I don't know if they were first-time posters or not, but they had like, I'm not even kidding you, 7 paragraphs to get to a question. It's like, that's too much. And I know that maybe you had a really elaborate, important point to make, but you got to try to be as concise as possible. There's no way that I can sit here and read your question because it would take 5 minutes to even get to the question, and that's too time-consuming for a show like this where I'm trying to get through so many questions. So try to be as concise as possible, maybe 2 paragraphs at most, trying to explain what you're trying to say, all right? Number 2, I'll tell you right now, 98% of the time, if you ask me, Phil, are you playing this specific game? I'm not going to answer. And that's because I tell you what I'm going to be playing in my schedule updates and in my weekend preview videos. That's why I make them. And I'm going to be honest, this week we had this epidemic of people who, when The Wolf Among Us Episode 2 came out, were all coming, Phil, on Twitter, on Facebook, on comments on my videos, on my stream chat, everywhere possible. Phil, are you going to play The Wolf Among Us? Phil, when are you playing it? What platform are you playing it on? And I'd already explained all that in the weekend preview. So those kinds of questions, if you're asking them and Ask the King, chances are they're not going to be answered, all right? And number 3, the things that primarily I'll probably never talk about because it's too much of a hotbed. There's too many people out there that are too close-minded that if you talk about these 2 things, that they might even get turned off and never, just get insulted or never watch something again. Religion and politics. So yeah, oh Phil, are you a Republican or a Democrat? What do you think about this or that? Or Phil, what's your religious belief? I'm probably never going to answer those questions. All right, so don't bother with those kind of things. More streamlined. Don't ask me about specific games I'm going to play, and don't ask me about politics or religion. Everything else is pretty much fair game. Okay. Now, one more thing before we get started. I just want to let everyone know that for the month of March, there will not be an Ask the King episode. And you might say, well, what's going on in the month of March specifically that you're not doing Ask the King? I'm going to tell you right now, the month of March, I might not even do a Hate Live, all right? And you guys know how much I love doing Hate Live. The month of March is incredibly packed with new releases. Now, we've said, in general, the year of 2014 up to now, January was dead, all right? February, here and there, we're having a little bit of action, but for the most part, nothing major that people are like dying to see. Again, it's me doing a lot of filler content, bringing back NBA 2K, things like that to fill time until we get to the last week of February, and then the entire month of March is insanely packed with new release content. I don't know why they've chosen this specific month. Maybe their market research maybe shows that they release stuff in this month that it'll do better. I don't know, but what I can tell you is March is going to be insane. and being I'm going to be juggling multiple new releases at the same time. Some of these games of which are going to be long, like South Park: The Stick of Truth is an RPG. That's probably going to be a longer game. I'm going to be having Thief, Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2, and Tales of Symphonia the same week, to the point where I'm actually thinking Tales of Symphonia may have to be delayed and played at a later date, just because there's no way I'm going to be able to fit it in. In addition to that, after that, you've got Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes is jammed in there at some point. You've got Dark Souls 2, Titanfall, Infamous Second Son, and the next Bioshock Infinite installment of the Burial at Sea DLC. Just between all that, how can you possibly fit all that kind of content into 1 month? And the answer is, it's going to be incredibly difficult. And I know that I'm probably going to be doing multiple, two full gameplay streams almost every day. And I don't know if I'm going to have time to be fitting in podcasts and stuff. It's just an inevitability. We'll see what happens. I'm not definitively saying no podcasts at all, but I am telling you, at least for Ask the King, this show will not take place in the month of March. I put a new thread up on thekingofhate.com for the next episode, which is now TBD for April 2014. You might say, what does that mean? It's to be determined. And the reason that it's to be determined is because there is a very strong possibility that in the month of April, that myself and my girlfriend Pandali will be flying out to one of the 3 locations that we're potentially considering moving to, and checking out listings, checking out houses, checking out the major city. What is it like to be there? And we want to do that as early as possible. And so it might be early April or whatever. And that would be technically when I would have done Ask the King. So Ask the King will happen in April, but I'm not going to tell you until we plan that trip. When that trip's planned, then I'm going to give you more details on that, okay? So I know already for what? A whole 5-10 minutes here, we've already been blabbing about stuff that's not questions. Let's get to the questions, okay? All right. The first question here is from I See Anything. And I See Anything asked the following. He says, hey, Phil, would you consider making an appearance of your retro look as you made your original YouTube debut on camera for us fans at any point? At this stage, at age 31, you actually look in much better shape compared to when you did in 2009 when you were starting to make videos, and you've lost a lot of weight. Also, originally someone mentioned, back then at the beginning, that you looked like Rufus, and in my opinion, you look nothing alike. Who was that? Now, I don't know who that was. Some asshole. Back then, you had so many people who their only goal was to bring me down. Remember, you had the DSP Colt later and the King of Weight HD, and you had these entire freaking just ridiculous personas on YouTube that were just created to try to make fun of me. I'm sure one of them was that. I don't know, but would I ever go back to my original look? If you guys don't know, I had an original channel called Darkside Phil here on YouTube that I shut down in 2010, basically because YouTube shut it down for false copyright claims. That was before I was ever partnered with Machinima. And then, in the late 2010, when I lost my job, I was laid off, I decided to change my look. I grew my hair out, I grew a beard, or a goatee, and since then I've pretty much stayed the same look. Well, the reason I did that is because I really felt at that point in my life, I was changing. I was not going to be this person who was the corporate shill, who worked a 9-to-5 job, who did what he was told. I was going to be a master of my own destiny, and I was going to try this real revolutionary new thing, try to make a YouTube thing work as a job and enough to support myself. And that's why I wanted to change the way I looked. I felt like, yes, am I the same person? Sure. But at the same time, it was significant or signifying of this change that I was making in my life and my destiny. And since then, I think I like the way I look. I like the way I look better with facial hair and with actual head of hair. Because it's funny, almost my whole life, I've never had hair. From my age like 16 to, that year, the better part of a decade, I had a buzz cut. And I never even knew that I could grow my hair out like that and do what I do with it. So I like the look of my long hair. I tell you right now, my girlfriend likes the look of my long hair and the goatee. I like it too. So I have no foreseeable plans in the future to change the way that my hair is constructed on my face. Okay? And boy, isn't it funny that this is the place to ask the kind of question. When else would you have asked that question? I would have answered it. All right, next question is from Skyfall 122. And he says, hey Phil, what is your general opinion about game demos? Do you think that they help or hurt sales? That's an interesting point. Because game demos, over the years that I've played them, have varied greatly. I've seen game demos that take a certain aspect of the game from like say, let's say not even the beginning of the game or the tutorial, but like the middle of the game somewhere, they'll pull a random event, and that'll be the demo, and it's out of place, and you're not really understanding what's going on. And maybe intriguing because you're kind of hooking you on, gee, this is going to happen in the story. But when it comes to the actual gameplay and what is this game going to entail, sometimes it could be incredibly confusing. Okay. And sometimes you can actually get almost misinformation on what the game actually is. I've played some demos where people are like, well, don't worry, that demo really isn't indicative of what the entire game is. On the flip side of that, if a demo is done right and it really hooks you with the gameplay, like for example, the Devil May Cry demo that came out last year, a lot of people were like, oh, this is the reboot of Devil May Cry, what's this going to be? And some people's fears were assuaded a little bit when they played it and they liked the combat of the demo. Of course, a lot of the hardcore purists did not like the demo. So there's a perfect example of a demo that some people it sold and some people it didn't. For me personally, I like demos. I like the fact that you can preview a game before it comes out. For me though, especially since I started doing this full time and I pretty much try to check out almost every major release unless I decide there's one I'm not very interested in, okay? For me, the demos don't really do anything in regards to helping or hurting sales, because more than likely if I'm playing the demo, it probably means I was going to play that game anyway. So for me, it's just like a preview of what the playthrough is going to be. And I just recently did that with Final Fantasy 13. I just said that, didn't I? Final Fantasy 13 Lightning Returns, which I had no idea if I was going to get. And after I played the demo, I was like, wow, the graphics are great. The story is as convoluted as ever. High production values. The combat is weird. They've changed it. And I was like, you know what? I've invested enough time into the series that I'm going to probably buy it and try to finish it, because I want to try to get to the end of the story and see what the resolution is. I've invested so much time up to now, I might as well go there, right? But it wasn't like the demo sold me or didn't sell me at all. It kind of actually put me on the fence, and it was the fact that I had played the previous 2 installments that I decided to go ahead and get the game overall. So for the common gamer who's not like me, who's not out there buying every game, I could see how a game demo can be a tremendous asset. Wow, a preview of the gameplay, a preview of what the production values and everything in the game are going to be. That demo for Final Fantasy 13 Lightning Returns might have sold a lot of people on the game, and it might have turned off a lot of people. So it's a double-edged sword, and I think that's why these developers, a lot of them don't even let out demos. They don't. Like, well, you read the preview or whatever, you saw the preview videos, judge based off of that, and they never release a demo. And I actually can see that these demos are actually few and far between these days. I haven't really seen that many demos being released on PSN or Xbox Live anymore, and I'm wondering if that's why. They're afraid that people are seeing these demos and getting turned off from the game, or thinking that the demos aren't representative of what the full game is. I don't know. But I hope that was enough of an explanation to at least give you at least a general feeling of what my feelings are on game demos, okay? All right, next question from Traditional Game. Traditional Game asks the following. After the move, and when you start meeting new people wherever you're living, will we see new co-op partners? It's sad that the gang will be going away, such as John, Howard, and OJ, but it could be cool to see a new gang with friends that could do co-op with you. And that's from a Traditional Gamer. I don't know if I said, or Traditional Game. Sorry, I don't know if I said that yet or not. The bottom line is this: when we move, it's going to be a whole new world, because we do not know anyone personally in any of the 3 locations that we're considering, which are Seattle, Washington, Dallas, Texas, and the Sunrise area of Florida. It's going to be a change. We're going to have to get used to our new environment, if we have an office or not, get used to our new filming situation, a new filming schedule, which we're going to have to work out. Finishing personal time, because it's not like one week a month we're going to be spending a week of personal time. No, we're going to be together all the time. And we don't know anyone in these locations we're going to. So the only thing that I could say that there's a possibility is I am friendly with Stuttering Craig from Screw Attack. And if we were to move to the Dallas area, I might reach out and say, listen, dude, I do my own content, but if you ever want to do a crossover, you want to do some kind of a cooperative event, or you want to, I'd be more than willing to jump in with your stuff, whether or not it even means that I benefit from it and I get videos out of it. It would be cool to get my name out there. And Screw Attack is a huge entity on the internet. That would definitely be something I would consider doing. But when it comes to actual just co-op, it's going to be, bumpy start. If it's going to be co-op for a game with online play, I'll see if I can coordinate with someone like Rambo and we can play over the internet. But I've already said this 1,000 times. Listen, couch co-op is going away. It's not just me and my choice to move, couch co-op in general is going away. This year, Nintendo, with games like the Winter Games that we're going to be playing this Saturday, with Donkey Kong Country, Tropical Freeze, and probably one or two more games, that's going to be it. After that wave, I don't think there's going to be couch co-op anymore. It's all going to be online-based gameplay. Look at every game. There's games that you can only play online multiplayer now. You know what I mean? So it's going away. And I don't get me wrong. From 2010, when I started doing the major couch co-op with John, to now, I've had an absolute blast, and I 100% agree that some of the best content I've ever put out had it involved John and other people who were involved in the co-op gameplay. But it's going away. Game developers aren't making it anymore. So I can't do it if it doesn't exist. So really you say, oh, well, if I move to Florida and you don't know anyone, now how am I going to get co-op partners? Do you really think I'm going to say, well, I live in Florida, so anyone who wants to play a game with me, come to my house today, and I'm going to give out my public address and just have people walking in and playing? No, of course not. Now, if there's somehow I get to know people in the area that are gamers somehow, maybe through a convention scene, maybe through the local game store that I go to, that's different. But no, I'm not going to start reaching out and talking to random people on the internet and inviting them into my home to start playing cooperative playthroughs. That would be creepy and, let's face it, not very safe. Complete strangers. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. I think it's going to be a slow, I have to keep telling people this, enjoy the couch co-op while it exists. This Saturday, John, myself, and Howard, for the first time in years, Howard is returning. We're doing couch co-op of Mario and Sonic at the Winter Olympic Games. You got to be here for it. Whether it's on stream or you check it out on YouTube, this is it. This is the final countdown. This is happening. This isn't like, you can deny reality and say, oh, I don't want to accept it. It's going away. So you have to accept it, and you're going to have to watch it while it's here. You know what I mean? Because this is what happens. People say, when it's here, they don't watch. Then they complain that when it's gone, well, you didn't watch it when it was here. Got to watch it when it's here. And this is going to be one of the biggest things I think we do all year. Check it out this Saturday. Enjoy it while it's here. Once we move, then we'll worry about how to do multiplayer in the future. All right? Next question is from, let's see here, the Nerve Guy, and he actually has two questions for me. The first one is, he says, since you began implementing live callers for Hate Live, would you consider having a musical guest come on Hate Live and play a quick live performance for your fans? I mean, that would be cool, having a musical performance. It would basically be turning Hate Live, rather than kind of a gaming commentary and more about my content, it would make it more of a variety show. I'm not against that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not against that at all. If it makes the show more interesting, absolutely. Right now, I don't think I've really nailed down the Skype thing yet, if you want my honest opinion. As you saw just 2 weeks ago, Hate Live was a disaster where the callers didn't even work. I would say let me give you a little bit more time to try to mess around with all the settings, to try to get everything perfected. And once we finally get it going 100%, then I would consider doing more creative stuff. In fact, I might even have guests on the show, meaning I might have certain people who I know, who I want to have call in and be guests, and we can discuss cool, intelligent topics with them. But that's all in the future. Again, that's something I'm aspiring to get to. I'm not rushing into it. The second question that the Nerve Guy had, he says, since you've been a fan of wrestling for a long time, you've mentioned in the past that you've been to a couple live wrestling shows in your life. Tell me, what are some of your experiences that you've had when you attended live wrestling shows? Well, the live wrestling shows that I've attended, I believe I've attended 4 in my lifetime. And the very first one, I'm going to be honest with everyone, I don't remember much. It was a long time ago when I was a teenager. It was the very first show that they were holding in the Bridgeport, Connecticut arena at Harbor Yard, which I think now they renamed it something else, Webster Bank Arena or something like that. But I remember it was a Monday Night Raw, and I do remember, if I remember correctly, I take it back, it was a SmackDown, and it had Hulk Hogan, and it had The Undertaker. I take it back. I remember the whole show. Holy shit, I just remembered it. It was the SmackDown where Hulk Hogan and The Undertaker were feuding. Hogan was the face, Undertaker was the heel. And I believe Undertaker wrapped his, like a cord around Hogan's leg and had him attached to his motorcycle and was driving through the hallways backstage with Hogan attached going like this. Oh, it was the dumbest thing ever. And I was there live for that, and I got to see Hogan live wrestle. I saw another SmackDown show years later at the same place. It was the steel cage match between Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman. And this was the steel cage match on SmackDown again, where on TV, Kurt Angle runs out and immediately he climbs the cage, gets in, and saves Heyman. But on TV, it was a fucked up thing that they cut out of the show. He was trying to get the cage door open and someone had locked it and he didn't realize it. He was trying to get it open and it wouldn't open. He did this for like 5 minutes. So Brock just took Paul Heyman, put him on his shoulders to do an F5, and held him there for like 5 minutes. No lie. Just like, well, this is taking forever. I'll just wait for Kurt. It's taking forever. I wonder what's going on. I was told to wait for Kurt to come in, so I'll keep holding him. It was the most ridiculous thing ever. And they cut it out of TV, and they just made it look like Kurt immediately just climbed the cage and got inside. And then the final show that I saw of a regular show was Raw, Monday Night Raw. Again, it was the same venue. But it was one of the anniversary shows, and they do them all the time now. Oh, the 200th episode, 1,000 episodes, 20 years, this and that. They do it all the time. But I was at one of the anniversary shows. I don't remember which one, but I do remember the coolest thing about the show is that without any warning, RVD came out for one match that night, and he won the match, and they did his pyro and everything, and I was on the side of the ramp, so the pyro was like in my face. I was like, ooh. It was pretty crazy. And then, of course, last year, WrestleMania. Everyone knows I attended WrestleMania 29 in the MetLife Center. And I've already talked on length on that. We don't need to do that. There's even video coverage of it. You can check that out on the King of Hate vlogs if you want to check out my WrestleMania coverage from last year. Okay. Next question is from Blazing Frost 12. And he says the following. He says, Phil, how do you feel about Candy Crush Saga copywriting the word candy, and how they're soon trying to copyright the word saga, and they're currently battling with indie devs of the Banner Saga game about Vikings because the word saga was originating from Viking lore, but they're saying that they own it. Alright, tell you right now, there's a mass misconception about this because you cannot copyright a word. It's not copyright. It's called a trademark, and I know this because I got one for myself, Darkside Phil. What I purchased years ago was the trademark to the name Darkside Phil in video game related content. Okay? So for videos that are on the internet that are related to video games, no one can say that they are Darkside Phil. If they do, I can immediately slap them with a lawsuit, a cease and desist, saying, no, Darkside Phil is owned by Darkside Phil, not you. You can't say that you're him. Okay? Now, what's happening here is Candy Crush Saga, supposedly, I don't know much about this, I've just heard rumors left and right, they're trying to trademark certain words. Now, you could trademark this phrase, Candy Crush Saga, okay? Meaning, if anyone says Candy Crush Saga in a video game, you can't use it unless you're this company. Now, if they're just trying to trademark the word candy, now that's going to be incredibly difficult to have it be upholdable in a court of law. Regardless of even if the trademark office very stupidly took the money and said, oh yeah, we'll do it for you. It doesn't mean that it's going to work, and it doesn't mean that it's actually going to be upholdable in the court of law. Because candy is not a word like Coke or Pepsi. It's not a brand name. It's a name already synonymous with a product and or a general thing, a piece of food, all right? A treat. It's a generalized term. It's not a company name. So for them to try to do that, even if the trademark office took the money to do it, doesn't mean that if it goes to a court that a judge is going to say, oh, that's legit. The judge will probably say, wow, the trademark office is a bunch of fucking assholes, and throw it out of court. So it sounds to me is like they tried trademarked Candy Crush Saga, and now they're trying to even go a step further, which they can't do per trademark law. And even if the office, like I said, takes it, I don't think it's ever going to go any further than that. It makes no fucking sense to me. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm just speaking from my personal experience with trademarks. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. All right. Let's see here. Probably answer another one or two questions, and then we'll go to on a short break. The next question is from GotPwnage520. Okay. And I'm going to shorten his question because, like I said, a lot of people, unfortunately, this time around gave me huge paragraphs when they could have said it in 2 words. His question is very simple. I missed a lot of games during the 2000s. Final Fantasy X was one of them. Will I be playing the Final Fantasy X and X-2 HD collection that's coming out next month? Now, I've already talked about this in my schedule, my calendar schedule, but I have an update for everyone regarding it, and that's why I wanted to bring this up. Because there are so many games coming out in the month of March that are new releases, not just re-releases. Again, I'm going to give you perspective. Last week of February, you got Thief, and you've got Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2. Tales of Symphonia Collection comes out then, but that's an old re-release, okay? The week after, you got South Park: The Stick of Truth. The week after that, you've got Dark Souls 2 and Titanfall. The week after that, you've got Infamous Second Son, and the last week of the month, you've got the BioShock Infinite Burial at Sea DLC. Just through those games that I just mentioned, I have no clue if I'll be able to finish them all. So HD collections such as Tales of Symphonia and Final Fantasy X HD, I'm probably going to buy them. I'm going to be honest. I'm probably going to buy them. You know me, I'm a fan of JRPGs. So I'm probably going to buy them, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to be playing them at that time. I'm more interested in the new release than the game that I missed out on. That's more like filler content. That's like a retro replay of a game that's from the past that I'm playing now because maybe there's an HD remake of it. And let's be honest, the general consensus, the general viewer wants to see the new content. They don't want to see the old HD rehash. They're probably more interested in seeing the new original content and the new games coming out. So those will take priority. But I'll probably be buying those kind of games to use later in the year. So let's say come May, June, July, during that time period, maybe I'm moving and then I finally move and I'm in my new home and I say, well, I want to play a game and there's no freaking games that came out. That'll be the kind of stuff that I'll start up with, okay? So that's the answer. Is will I be getting that collection? More than likely it's a yes, but I probably won't be playing it during that month because I'm going to be so busy with everything else, but I will be playing it at a later date when we have downtime. There you go. All right, let's do one more question and then we'll take a break. We'll come back, okay? The next question is, actually, you know, we may do two because this is a quick one, all right? Bleary Line 7 says, Phil, since all the exclusive launch titles have now been released for both of the new consoles, have you made up your mind on which platform you're going to be playing cross-platform games on in the future? The PS4 is more powerful, and the third-party games are going to look better on that system in general, or will you play these on the Xbox One for the achievements that you have in your gamer score, and you said you wanted to increase that gamer score. Now, that's not necessarily the truth. Really, if you remember when I gave my comparisons of the PS4 versus the Xbox One earlier, well, actually, it was late last year, I said the PS4, I feel, is going to have the better graphical engine and may have a better performance on games. But the Xbox One, I actually liked a lot the controller. I thought the controller felt a little bit more natural and easier to use on the Xbox One. And I also said we don't know what the online experiences of either of these consoles are going to be right now. I haven't done major online play, really, when you think about it, because neither console was really working with a headset properly at launch. All they had are these little crappy headsets to use. They don't have real, professional headphones that are working with them yet. So we don't even really know what the online experience will be. It was funny because the games that I did try online on the PS4 had problems, like Battlefield 4. Remember how many problems it had? Now, that was game specific, but again, what I want to say is this. Last generation, I gave the Xbox 360 the edge, and I played most cross-platform games on the Xbox 360 for two reasons. Number one, because I owned it first, and I liked the controller more than the PS3 controller. And number two, because I thought that those games did have better online play with the Xbox Live community, that it worked better, the matchmaking was better, the party system was better, the voice chat was better, and I already had achievement points that were accumulated on that system. So I had two solid reasons that console generation to go with the Xbox 360 over the PlayStation 3. This time around, I don't really see definitive benefits, you know what I mean? Like, we don't know. We don't know when a game comes out for PS4 and Xbox One, Game & Point Thief, that's coming out in just a few weeks. Will it look better on one console over the other? Will one console have better content on one over the other? I don't think anyone knows the definitive answer to that yet. Will the online play be better on one over the other? Will the voice chat sound better on one over the other? I don't know. I've decided, at least for the beginning of this console generation, Thief I'm buying on PS4. I would like to try it out on PS4 and see how it performs, okay? The month after that, you got Titanfall, which is the Xbox One, Xbox 360 exclusive. Obviously, I'm getting that one for Xbox One. There's no current gen comparison there. I can't choose between the two consoles because PS4 is not getting it. Other games that are coming out later this year are going to be highly dependent on what you get. If you remember correctly, they already announced for Watch Dogs, you get more content on PS4. There's exclusive missions. So obviously, I'll be getting it on PS4. Other games we will judge on a per-game basis, dependent on what comes with the games. So the answer is no. I've not made a definitive decision yet, but the very first game of this year for the new consoles, I am playing on PS4, and we're going to see how that turns out. All right? There you go. All right, let's do one more quick question. This one is from 9Kenny5, and he asks, Phil, how do you keep track of things that are part of your tax write-offs? Do you keep a note or a notebook to keep track? Maybe do you have a folder Or do you have emails that you keep track of all the digital receipts? How do you do it? Now, if you don't know what Kenny's talking about, because this is what I do on YouTube and Twitch TV is considered my own business and I'm considered self-employed, I am responsible for keeping track of all of the financial cost of doing this during the course of the year. And anything that I spend money on that directly leads to me making video content for you, including the cost of my internet, the cost of any of the equipment. Remember all the equipment I bought in 2013, including the direct capture equipment, the camcorder, all kinds of stuff that I use to make videos, all right? The cost of games, directly, cost of both retail and DLC games and things like that. All this stuff is considered cost of business, and what it means is that I don't have to pay taxes on that income. So if I spend any money on any of that stuff, that's considered income I made that I don't get taxed on. Now, there's limitations, and it's not unlimited. No, I can't go spend, $100,000 and expect that all that's going to be, tax write-off. No, there's definitely limitations on it, okay? But for the most part, it's worked out. Where business travel, I travel to a trip and I video vlog the entire trip. It's covered. And playing games, the cost of the games is covered. The cost of the internet is covered. And I need to keep track of it. So there's multiple ways I do that. First of all, every time I go and buy something physically, I keep the physical receipt and I file it. I have a file cabinet where I file it away. My bank statements are directly linked to things such as my PayPal account. So I keep my bank statements, right? And I have a history anyway online. If I lose one, I can still print it out. But I keep my physical bank statements. And what I do come April, which I should do it earlier than that, but being that, look how crazy it's going to be in the month of March. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. I need to sit down and take all of those receipts and I put them into a spreadsheet, month by month. What did I spend? What was it on? And I split it into categories, such as an ongoing service charge, such as cost of internet, versus a physical charge for a video game that I bought, versus maybe a new piece of equipment like the camcorder or the capture equipment. That stuff is different. It works differently on taxes, okay? So all this goes into a spreadsheet, and I send this to my accountant. My accountant figures out what qualifies, what doesn't, and then he does all the taxes for me. So it's very complicated, and I got to be careful because there's a high potential that I could forget a huge thing that was like thousands of dollars. Like, what if I went on a trip, to SGC, where I paid thousands of dollars for that trip, for the hotel room, for the plane tickets, and I didn't account for it? Well, that was money out of my pocket that I could have saved money on my taxes, and I didn't. So it's really tricky, and it behooves me to stay on top of this stuff, and I try to do as best of a job as I can. And really, come tax time, it's a huge hassle to have to do it, but it's worth it in the long run, okay? So that's it for part 1 of Ask the King. I'm now going to take a short break. We're going to come back in a few minutes, and we're going to keep moving on with the questions. We got tons of questions that I have not even gotten to yet before we even start getting out of the forums and over to, say, Twitter and all that. If you're watching on Twitch TV, please hang in there. I'll be right back in a moment. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't worry. Part 2 is going to be a separate video, so just go over to that video and check it out, okay? Thanks, everyone, and I will see you in a little bit for part 2.